Siyafunda lokho ke. Ngoba yikho into erongo ukuthi nathi sine-university yamaZulu. Siname-university yamaXhosa, yama-Pedi, yama-Tswana, yama-Tsonga. Wonke umuntu akabe ne-university yakhe.
Guys, this one has really got people talking in South Africa because Jacinta Ngobese-Zuma has found herself at the center of another major controversy. Jacinta is talking about the possibility of communities having their own universities. During a recent protest in central Durban, Jacinta raised the question of why different communities couldn't establish institutions that reflect their own languages and cultures. And she went further by giving examples of different ethnic groups having their own universities: Zulu universities, Xhosa universities, Tswana universities. And now this is where I think the conversation becomes very complicated. Because on one hand, there are people who can understand the arguments about preserving African languages and cultures. On the other hand, the way the proposal has been framed around specific ethnic groups has raised serious concerns. And this is exactly where the backlash started. One of the strongest reactions came from the Secretary General of the South African Federation of Trade Unions. Bavia accused Jacinta of promoting the kind of ethnic division that South Africa has spent decades trying to overcome. Remember, this is a country with a very complicated history of racial and ethnic separation. During Apartheid, communities were deliberately divided and institutions were created around those divisions. And now when somebody today starts talking about separate institutions for Zulus, Xhosas, Pedis, Tsongas, and other groups, some South Africans are naturally going to ask, are we really trying to move forward or are we going backwards?
University yamaZulu. Siname-university yamaXhosa, yama-Pedi, yama-Tswana, yama-Tsonga. Wonke umuntu akabe ne-university yakhe.
That is the leader of March and March, the Afrophobic movement, Jacinta Zuma. She is calling for the creation of Zulu University. She says that they need to construct or create Zulu University that will be attended by only Zulus. She also wants the different ethnic nationalities in South Africa to have their own university. You see, I am not surprised that it is getting to this level. You know, after meeting up with the Afri Forum, she says she wants to learn from them or collaborate with them when it comes to the decision-making process of South Africa. Afri Forum is an organization that wants the disintegration of South Africa and the establishment of independent Cape Republic from South Africa. This is the people that Jacinta Zuma said she wants to collaborate with. You see, I am not surprised she's coming up with such rhetoric after meeting up with the Afri Forum. Maybe very soon we would be hearing about Zulu independence from South Africa, the Republic of Zululand. That is what we might expect very soon. You see, Julius Malema said this when this anti-migrant protest started. He said, after you've done with the African migrant, you will turn against yourself. And this is beginning to ravel. It is raveling before our eyes. The tribalistic tendencies that these protests have taken. Are we likely to see the fragmentations of South Africa as a country? Very soon the Tongas and the Xhosas will all start calling for their own republic as well, or the creation of various universities for their nation. You see, when I see this lady, this Jacinta Zuma, a lot of South Africans seem to gravitate towards her, thinking she is smart, she's doing the right thing for their country, but they don't know she's destroying their nation. You see, when you have a bunch of uneducated people who lack critical thinking skills, and when they see somebody who they believe is quite educated or have the ability to help them to buttress their points, which they have been feeling in terms of marginalization, lack of economic opportunity, they all gravitate towards her. Never knowing that this lady, Jacinta Zuma, is absolutely ignorant. She's not as intelligent as people think she is. I think in South African level she is, but looking at her, I've listened to her speak. She's not the most intelligent person, but for her to start calling for the creation of Zulu universities, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. So every ethnic nationality in South Africa needs to have a university created for them by our government. Where is the cohesion? Where is the national cohesion in South Africa? Are we going to see everyone isolating themselves from each other? You see, South Africa as a country, I don't understand the constitutions or the laws of South Africa. Does it give citizens the right to question the authorities of the state? Is that why everybody is coming up with their own agenda when it comes to South Africa? I think it's absolutely tragic that South Africa is not in a state of pariah. South Africa is a failed nation. It's a banana republic. That is why we are seeing different organizations and different people coming up with an ideas on how to govern the nation, where there is a legitimate government in place that is supposed to govern and enforce the laws of South Africa. Citizens are not taking into their hands when it comes to governing South Africa and enforcing the laws of the land.
Julius Malema might be a prophet. He warned us. He said when they are done with foreigners, the South Africans will start turning on each other. Listen to Jacinta Zuma for yourself. So the problem was never foreigners. Now the problem is tribe versus tribe. Was this ever about tribes, or are we now entering the tribalism era? If every tribe in South Africa starts saying our tribes only, what country are we going to have left? What country are we going to have left?
There is a very, very shocking video of Jacinta saying, Ukuthi, there's nothing wrong with having a university for Zulus only. Haibo. How did we get here? And don't get me wrong, I think I'm shocked that those words are actually coming out of her mouth, because when in the beginning they were told to Kuti, well, you guys are tribalists, you know, and they tried by all means to say, no, we are not a tribalist movement, we are for all South Africans. They started to go to different provinces. They brought different people in to say, this is not only a Zulu thing. Now you want a Zulu only university? Hey!
This idea of trying to push for ethnic-based universities is just promoting segregation, it's normalizing tribalism, and it's also dividing a black community that is already being attacked from every single direction in this country. South Africa has already experienced the consequences of separating people through race, through ethnicity, through language, through territory even. And apartheid has deliberately used education as part of that system. During apartheid, the 1959 extension of University Education Act was made to separate different racial and ethnic groups. It was not made to empower black communities. It was made to divide them and to also weaken their collective political power. So the existence of a potential Afrikaans institution does not mean that we should justify creating universities along ethnic lines. Two exclusionary structures does not equal or create equality. It just normalizes the idea that education should be divided by ethnicity. And this itself is problematic because we can't just simply ignore South Africa's history and pretend that the structure is progressive simply because the intent is different. We are 32 years into democracy, but still to this day, black South Africans are still facing unequal education, unemployment, corruption, poverty, poor service delivery, and are still living through the long-lasting effects of apartheid. Even historically disadvantaged universities that are predominantly black are still struggling with funding, infrastructure, resources, and even academic output. So why would we create more ethnically separated institutions when we haven't even fixed the inequality that was left by the previous system?
University Zulu. University Xhosa, Pedi, Tswana and Tsonga. University.
You know, I listened to her saying this, and it reminded me of a speech I once heard a while ago. I'm not going to say much. Here's the speech. Stay with me. Here's the speech.
If people see the whole of Africa as just one big black area, then they miss the fundamental point which will make development possible. And that is, these black people are as different to one another as we whites are. Africa is multinational, and it will and must develop as a number of nation states. And where the boundaries have been drawn wrongly in the past, By the interference from Europe, there in the course of time, the fundamental nationalism of the various nations of Africa and the various language groups of Africa will have its influence. In Europe you could get peace only by separating the nations. In South Africa you can only achieve peace by separating the nations.
This speech was made sometime in the 1950s, if not around the 1960s early. It was a successful. He achieved his mandate. He achieved. By the way, just as an FYI, this happens to be the architect of apartheid. Remember, apartheid means we need to be apart, separate. They needed to separate us, which is the original idea of what we saw at the beginning of this very video. There's not somebody who says there's nothing wrong with having a Zulu university, a Xhosa. That's apartheid. The reincarnate. We are now once again being reintroduced or being reconditioned into the very same system that our forefathers died trying to dismantle.
Let me address the issue of universities, where there's a video of me saying that we can have universities. There's nothing that stops us from having universities for Zulus, Pedis, Xhosa, etc. And I believe that even though I don't think that I put it the way that I intended to put it, I do want to take full responsibility for it and say that it did not come out the way that it was intended. The purpose of the messaging was to say that the same way that AfriForum has built universities and they're able to speak Afrikaans, we can also have universities that cater for our selective or respective languages. I don't think that's the way that it came out, and it came out as though I'm trying to say that we can have separate tribes having their own universities. I'm not sure why some are now trying to spin it as though it was to say that Zulus can have their own university, because I mentioned quite a number of languages, but I guess that's how propaganda works. But on my part, in the way that the messaging came out, I do apologize for that.
Now, this story has gone far beyond one speech at a protest. It has opened up a much bigger conversation about what kind of South Africa people actually want to build. Is it South Africa where Zulu, Xhosa, Pedi, Tswana and Tsonga cultures are strongly protected and promoted? Yes. But should that happen through separate ethnic institutions, or should existing universities be transformed so that African languages and cultures have a much bigger place inside them? That is a difficult question, and now I want to hear from you guys. Do you think Jacinta's idea of Zulu, Pedi, Tswana universities makes sense if the goal is to preserve African languages and cultures? Or do you agree with the critics who said this could divide South Africa along ethnic lines? Because this is one of those debates where I know South Africans are going to have different opinions. Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you found this story interesting, make sure you like, share, subscribe, because we are going to keep following this controversy and bring you the latest developments. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.